Hello and welcome back to the Fast Forward Sailing YouTube channel. Let's have a look at what went down on day 4 of the Tokyo Olympic Sailing. Right, so first we're going to analyse some of the results from today's racing, and then we're going to have an in-depth look at the star-studded and very experienced 470 men's fleet and the favourites to win gold there. Yesterday was a bit of an upset for the favourites, but today many of them were back on top with a great day for the Brits in particular. Racing started for the Nacra and 470 fleets today, so it's all getting a little bit busy with a lot of action to follow, so I'm not going to cover everything in this video. Now a significant number of the races aren't being broadcast, so we're a little bit limited in that regard. So I'm going to go through the first 2 470 men's races and have a look at the highlights there. But before we do that, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the results and give you my thoughts. So starting with the RSX women's windsurfer, Brit Emma Wilson at her first time Olympics is absolutely smashing it. A bit of an upset on the last race of the day today. That's a UFD, that means she was over the line. It's like a black flag, but if a race is rescheduled for any reason, you can start that race. It's been used throughout the Olympic regatta, so it can be a bit tough on the competitors. It means you can't go back and restart. So we have been seeing several UFDs. So Emma Wilson will be hoping not to get too many of those. Charlene Picon, who was in second before today, she's dropped back. She's been to many Olympics before, and the Chinese girl is performing very well in second. Favourite Lillian de Hoos is having a slightly better day today, but is still back in 5th. Right, the men's windsurfer now, we've got favourite Kieran Badlow, continuing in the shoes of Dorian van Risselberg, the Dutch windsurfer who won gold in the last 2 Olympics. He's followed closely by Italy's Mattia Camboni and Thomas Goyard. Tom Squires having a good day for Britain, his first time Olympics, looks set to make the medal race. And American Pedro Pascual is sitting in 9th. Got a few high scores here, but he should be making that medal race. Right, Nacra 17 now, it's the first day of racing for the mixed gender catamaran. The Italians are sitting on top with a solid set of results. Germany is in second, and the very experienced Australian crew of Jason Waterhouse and Lisa Darmanin are third with 1 high result and 2 counters. Brits John Gibson and Anna Burnett in their first Olympics had a pretty good day too, coming in ahead of one of the oldest Olympians competing at Tokyo 2020, Santiago Langer, who won the gold medal last time after coming back from a battle with cancer. Francis Quentin Dalapierre doing pretty well too, with a bit of a shocker on the first race. He's taken the reins from Billy Besson, the very experienced cat sailor, who is now helming the France Sail GP boat. Laser Radio Women now, I don't believe there is any racing today, but I didn't show the results from yesterday. We can still see one of the favourites, Anne-Marie Rindam, is on top, with gold medalist Marit Baumeister in hot pursuit. The laser men now, Pavlos Kontides had a really good day yesterday, but with this one big result he'll be hoping not to make too many mistakes. Matt Wern has had a great catch up after a disastrous start to the regatta, and the very impressive Robert Scheidt at his 5th or 6th Olympics, 48 years old, he is hanging in there in the medal positions. He'll be hoping not to drop back to 4th as he did in Rio. Finn class now, a great day for the favourite and previous gold medalist Giles Scott. He finished with 2 bullets, showing a bit of that class we're so used to. Another pre-regatta favourite, Josh Jr., also having a better day. And the top 3 from yesterday, all dropping off the pace a bit. But it's interesting, this Spanish guy is counting all 3s. Right, 49er FX women. The Brits continued their good form, although the Dutch actually won the day and climb up to second. I must say I haven't heard much about the Dutch crew, so that's a bit of a surprise to see them there, but perhaps that's a symptom of the big hiatus we've had in 49er FX sailing in the last year and a half. Right, in third we have experienced Spanish crew Tamara Echegoyen and Paula Martin, no surprises there, but Martine Grail and Kahina Kunz, the gold medalists from 2016, not having a good day. They won't be happy with that. I expect they'll get it back together, but perhaps not in time to win that second gold. Right, 49er men now. Great day for the Brits again, sitting pretty on top, followed very closely by the experienced Spanish crew and Nathan Outridge's successor in the Australian 49er, the Phillips brothers, I believe, performing very well too. The favourites, Pete Burling and Blair Tuke, after not having a very good first race, have climbed back into it with some decent results, although they still seem a little bit off the pace. One of the older helms, Germany's Eric Heil, is sitting in 8th. Right, 470 women now. The favourites were previous gold medalist Hannah Mills and her new crew Eileen McIntyre. They had a decent day alongside the experienced French crew, but the big surprise was the Polish who I wouldn't have predicted to be winning the fleet at this stage, especially not with such consistent good form in 2 bullets. It'll be interesting to see whether they can keep this up, but to show this consistency is a good sign for them. So it looks like it's going to be a tight fight for that gold medal. Germany sitting on 4th after a pretty good first day, and interestingly, Japan are coming in 5th place. Japan doing well in both the women's and men's 470. The 470 has consistently been the best class for the Japanese, and this is their home Olympics, so sailing on home waters may be giving them a little bit of an advantage. Interestingly, it's North Sails Japan who makes a lot of the sails for the 470 fleet. So that's a rundown of the results. We're now going to have an in-depth look at the 470 class, the ones to watch, my predictions for the top 3. And first we're going to run through some highlights of the 2 races today. We haven't got any video highlights, I'm afraid, because of copyright issues, but what I can do is show the pictures of the key moments. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a taste of what's been happening. By the way, if you like these kind of videos, if you could just leave a thumbs up below the video. Believe it or not, YouTube looks at those stats, and if it's got a lot of likes, it will show it to more people, so it helps the channel. Also, if you know anyone who might be interested in these videos, if you share it with them, that would be much appreciated. Right, on with the video. Here's a quick history of the 470 class. Its first games was in 1976 in Montreal, Canada, making it one of the oldest classes in the Olympics. It was mixed gender initially, but that ended up being all men until in 1984 the first women went, in Britain's Cathy Foster. Interestingly, she sailed out of my home club, Frensham, in the south of England. After the 1984 games, it was split into men and women's fleets, and that's what we still see today. But I believe in the next games, it's going back to a mixed fleet, but this time there will be 1 male and 1 female crew on each boat. So on to race 1, the experienced USA crew who teamed up before the 2016 games, the crew and helm both been competing against each other for that Olympic spot. They finished in 4th at Rio, so arguably one of the favourites to make those medal positions this time round. They had a good first half of the beat, but they fell back and it wasn't a great race for them. At Mark 1, Sweden's Anton Dahlberg led, followed by Australia, GBR and then New Zealand. Interestingly, if you see the 470 logo coloured in gold, that means they're a previous world champion. I also find it strange to see no numbers on the sails. Just seems like there should be something there. At the first leeward gate, Sweden was still leading, but it was a dodgy rounding for them. They seemed to have a halyard jam. That happened in the second race to another boat, so it seems like quite a common issue. On the second beat, New Zealand dropped back. Now at the second windward mark, it was still Sweden in the lead, then Australia, and then GBR. At the second leeward gate, Australia closed the gap on Sweden. Some of the favourites going into the regatta in New Zealand and the USA were down in 6th and 7th. But other than that, it was the usual favourites at the front of the fleet. Another boat having a problem with their halyard around this mark. Brazil got it jammed, and that means they can't get the spinnaker down, which hurt their rounding. On most of the beats, the leaders went right, but GBR erred towards the middle both times and seemed to gain from it, potentially because they were in clearer air. Talking of GBR, the crews trapeze out on the 470s. They're often very tall. Interestingly, the nickname of the British crew is Twiggy, referencing his slender build. They have to be extremely fit as they have to pump a lot of the time, and that pumping you see them doing, it just generates that extra power. So Sweden managed to hold on to their lead in that race and came across in first, followed by the Australians in second. The Brits climbed up to third, France in fourth, and Greece, the very experienced Mantis and Kagialis, finished off in fifth. Now, before I go over race 2, I'm just going to take this opportunity to plug my sailing blog. It's completely free and it's got loads of articles on there to help you improve your sailing. We've got all the different categories here, so you can just click on any of them. For instance, boat speed, and here you've got articles on everything from Ben Ainsley's downwind speed tips. And if you're a 470 sailor, we got 470 gold medalist Saskia Clark's boat speed tips for crews. There's a lot on here by a lot of experienced sailors, but if by any chance there is something we haven't got, then leave a comment below this video and I'll try and put an article together on it. So let's have a look at race 2 before we go over my predictions and the ones to watch in the 470 fleet. Off the start in the second race, Japan were looking good, making the most of their home advantage. Sweden had a penalty early on in the beat. I didn't see what happened exactly. I don't believe there was any footage of it, but they clearly thought they were in the wrong and had infringed another boat. That 2-turn penalty seriously put them down the fleet, and in such an experienced fleet, it's very hard to climb through. Interestingly, in this first beat, none of the top 5 in the last race were in the top 5 halfway up this first beat. Brazil and Turkey also got a good start and good first beat. There was big waves and the wind was dying off a little bit, which made for interesting sailing conditions because, of course, the waves take longer to die down after the wind dies down. Spain were the big beneficiaries of this beat, climbing their way through the fleet, and they had a really good downwind. They're known to be very good on those downwinds. At the first gate, Brazil and Spain were very close in first and second. USA and Sweden not performing at all. Sweden second last at this point. The French crew Kevin Peppernet and Jeremy Mion banged out right on the beat and gained. Brazil and Spain went left, but Spain tacked back to the centre sooner and gained on Brazil. So it looked like there was a right shift or some more wind on that right side, which allowed France and Spain to gain over Brazil. New Zealand were also catching up on this beat. On the second downwind, GBR made a gain, and at the leeward gate, New Zealand were in second. The Brits, who were up there, dropped back a bit on the last beat. On the last run, New Zealand gained a lot on Spain. It looked like they may catch the lead, but Spain quickly got their act together and accelerated away. Australia and Greece gained on this run, bringing Australia up to 5th and the Greeks up to 6th. But it was a big disappointment for the Brits, who for some reason dropped back on this run. I don't know if they had something wrong with their boat or simply went the wrong way, but they had a significant drop down into 8th. So now we got 2 races under our belt. We now get a better idea of who are the ones to watch. So I'm going to go through that now. I'm going to introduce you to some of the top names and give my predictions for those medal positions. I always find it helpful to have a look at the results from the previous games. Sure, World Championships are helpful, but it's almost a different environment in the games. You've got to be able to perform in this extremely high pressure environment. If you're one of these sailors, sure, World Championships are important, but really they're just building blocks to the Olympics. And when you put the Olympics on that pedestal, it does create that extra pressure. The difference, I guess, with this Olympics is there's not as many eyeballs on it. So far, I haven't seen any footage on mainstream TV in the UK, so I've just been watching it on Discovery. And also, spectators are banned from the games in Tokyo. So it could be creating a different environment, maybe a slightly less pressured environment. For those who struggle under the expectations of all these fans, they might outperform expectations. And for those who thrive off the fan energy, they might find themselves dropping back a bit. Regardless, I think it's interesting to look at the results from the last games. The gold medalists last time, Fantella and Marinic, bowed out on a high and aren't competing in this year's games. So the top boat from 2016 who is competing is World Sailors of the Year, Australia's Matt Belcher and Will Ryan. Another very experienced crew in Greece's Mantis and Kagialis. They came in third last time round. They're the oldest sailors in what is quite an old fleet. They've not had the best of days by their standards. Could it be their age showing? It's a bit too early to tell. And also this leaderboard is a bit deceptive because it's putting them down in 7th, but they've got 11 points, which is equal to 3rd place. So all these boats are effectively 3rd place. So really a very close fleet and all to play for still. The Americans, the Brits and the Swedish all missing out on those medal spots last time. And it's not been a great start for those boats. The best of them were the Brits, who had a solid 3rd in the first race and were 3rd for much of the second race until dropping back into 8th. Sweden had a very inconsistent day, winning the first race, but turns on the second race put them down the fleet. They'll be hoping not to make too many more mistakes. And the Americans way back in the fleet with an 8th and a 12th. They'll be really disappointed with that. It'll be interesting to see whether that form continues tomorrow. Interestingly, the big improvers from the last Olympics are New Zealand's Paul Snow-Hansen and Daniel Wilcox, and the Spanish helm Jordi Xammer, who's with a new crew this time in Nicolas Rodriguez. They find themselves in 2nd and 3rd respectively. Jordi Xammer was a Youth America's Cup helm and is on the Spanish Sail GP team, who's been doing pretty well of late. I believe it's him who's controversially taking the helm from Phil Robertson on board the Spanish boat after the Olympics. So here are my predictions for the top 3. My money's got to be on Matt Belcher and Will Ryan. They got one of the best coaches out there. They had a bit of a slip up in that silver medal last time round, but still a great result. And they're one of these crews which does have that air of invincibility about them, which is rare in sailing. They're also showing some good signs at these early stages, so I'm going to go with them for the gold spot. I'm going to put Luke Patience and Chris Grube in second. Silver medalists from 2012. Didn't do so well in 2016, but you have to remember that crew hadn't been together that long. Chris Grube stepped in for Luke Patience's previous crew, who had a cancer scare, so had to step back. They've shown they can get up here with a 3 in the first race, and they were third for much of the second race. So yeah, I'm not sure about it, but I'm going to put them in second. And then the third spot, I really don't know who to put there. I believe it's going to be the New Zealanders or the Spanish. If I'm pushed, I'm going to fancy the Spanish. Interestingly, the New Zealanders, who had a good first day in the last Olympics at Rio, really dropped back and had a terrible second day, so that will be in their memories. And they only had 2 good races in the rest of the regatta. So based on that pre-Olympic form, I'm going to pip the Spaniards for third place. So that's my predictions. Let me know if you agree with them or not. What are your predictions for the 470 men's class? And you can give me your predictions for a 470 women too if you want. So I'm going to leave the video there. I'm thinking of creating some t-shirts and stuff for fast forward sailing. So let me know if you like the idea. Would you get one? Perhaps you like something other than t-shirts, maybe a mug or something. Any feedback you have would be really appreciated. So the Olympic sailing in Tokyo is really hotting up. I'll try and keep making these kind of videos throughout the rest of the next week or so. So if you don't want to miss those, press the subscribe button and the notifications bell. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.